Ken and Jenny Stewart have experience from the low country of Florida to the high deserts of Wyoming, and they've found a breed of cattle that they think will work just about anywhere.
I believe these cattle work a lot of different places, and even from my own composite for years, I've had, cows out on shares with people and stuff. I've had them grazing fescue, the same cows that Jimmy has and I have in Wyoming. We're in Mississippi, Florida, fescue in Tennessee, and they, because it's a resilient package that's got the right vital organ capacity and rumen, and they got big rumen vats there. They work well everywhere. I don't think that if you wanted to run a bunch of them in Florida, you probably want to put them on a set of half blood cows.
Some of the particular characteristics that set them apart are vigorous calves and maternal function.
I can appreciate them from the standpoint of going out and watching them move and be mothers, and just been real easy calving season as they've been just hit the ground going. I mean, if you don't get that calf tagged in day one, you're going to get her at when you precondition, you're going to put a tag in and man me up then.
All that and more on this episode 512 of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by Inderland Ranch, Gray's Magazine, Create Coaches, and Ranch Right.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast. Very excited to be joined today by Ken and Jenny Stewart. And they are in the Stewart family. We talked to Jimmy here not long ago, and Ken and Jenny have been working with this new breed of cattle, not a new breed necessarily, but new to them, of Aubrac Cattle, and they've really been excited about the way that they've been performing, and given their perspective working on corporate ranches in Florida and in Texas, and then on into the high deserts of Wyoming. They're really excited about the possibility of these cattle being functional in a lot of different environments. So we're going to talk to them about what it is that sets these cattle up for success, and how they've been seeing them perform in the environments that they've been using them. Here's my conversation with Ken and Jenny Stewart. Ken, Jenny, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm interested in the story, I guess, and kind of how you guys are coming to be doing what you're doing right now. So I guess maybe start with what you're doing, and then we'll talk about how you ended up there.
So we make composite cattle, and we merchandise them with our son Jimmy Stewart with Big Country Genetics, and we've been doing that since it wasn't even popular. Back in the 90s, we started crossing our Simmental cattle with Angus bulls using some oldie genetics and whatnot, and we found out that they were what we really liked. So we just kind of kept doing that, but had a lot of twists and turns along the ways. Back then in those days, Jenny was a computer programmer, and I also built houses, and we had 150 cows, and with the economy the way it was, the house building wasn't as prevalent, so we really liked ranching, so we went and managed ranches for about 20 years.
Gotcha. And what were some of your influences on the composite side? How did you get into doing it as early as you did?
I kind of always just wondered if I could make them better. We had good cattle, not to make light of them, but they were straight bred, not full blood, but purebred Simmentals, and they were plenty big, and they required a lot of maintenance energy and whatnot. So the main reason why we decided to start crossing them was to put some heterosis into them, not necessarily for the growth, but maybe more along the lines of the maternal heterosis, get more calves out of a cow's lifespan, get the cows down where they didn't require near as much resources in order to sustain themselves.
Sure. And then I guess, was there a breed specific that you were drawn to, or was it more of, I think we maybe have heard of breeds within breeds, right? That there are different cattle that are going to be, on the larger side, and then there's other cattle that are going to be on the smaller side, more functional within any breed. So was there just a type you were looking for, or were there certain things that drew you to one breed over another?
Yeah, so I think as I was breeding cattle, I kind of always wanted to make them a little more moderate with some extra capacity and rib shape, able to do less with or do more with less. And so we just kind of gravitated that way. Some of the early bulls we used were like OCC Anchor, and we used Great Plains Bull and some along those lines, along with some other mainstream Angus that we thought might work, but they and some of them did, but the type and kind that we wanted was more along the lines of those real easy doing, moderate frame, maternal type Angus on our composite with the Continentals that we had. And our Continentals weren't extreme, but they weren't small or real super efficient either. So
Were there other Continentals involved, or just the Simmentals?
So over the years, I have played with some Galvia influence as well, but so no, we have not done until recently, and then maybe that's what you're prying for. But just recently, we found another breed that we want to intertwine into our composite that we think is going to offer a lot, and that's the Aubrac breed. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
Yep, yeah, I've definitely heard of it. I haunted the Johann Zietzman texting group for quite a while. May or may not still be in it, but not active in it any longer, not lurking in it any longer. I was never really active. I was just there to learn. But heard of it there, and then I think there's some others that are interested in those same genetics too, or have used them. I think maybe Cooper Hibbard maybe's used them some as well. So. Anyways, definitely familiar with the name, not real familiar with the breed. So we'll get there eventually today, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
Greater familiarity. So, Jenny, what was your perspective on all this, and kind of how have you been a part of it?
So my input to it is really kind of more behind the scenes and just kind of doing things in the computer, records management. I do day-to-day responsibilities and stuff, but the overall breed selection, the matings, all that stuff, that is all on Kim.
Yeah, but don't let her fool you. I would send her to sort cattle for me, and I have before, but I would not hesitate for a minute. She does a good job.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Indraland Angus Ranch. In 3 separate recent conversations with seed stock producers who made appearances on the Working Cows podcast, they all remarked that they had an immense amount of respect for Roger and Betsy Indraland at Indraland Angus because of the pressure they put on their cows to work and perform without assistance. If you want bulls that are durable and fertile, you can get your hands on them May 29th, 2026 in person near Big Timber, Montana, or online. Yes, 40 of these coming 2-year-old bulls that have been developed on grass will sell May 29th, 2026. For more information, check out indralandranch.com. Jenny, I'd like to drill down a little bit there on kind of the technology side of it. I kind of made that note when Ken was introducing you guys. Have you found technology as a useful tool for helping in some of those decisions? Or I know, and Jimmy and I talked about this on the episode that came out on the day we're recording this a lot, that, some of those technologies, the EPDs and some of those kind of can be a tiebreaker. In some scenarios, we shouldn't just make decisions, of course, based on paper. We should look at the animals and say, these have the look, these have that rib shape we're looking for, the slope that we're looking for from hooks to pins, all those kinds of things. But then we can have a tiebreaker maybe with the EPDs or whatever we're looking at for that. But has the technology, have you guys found ways to use the technology, different technologies to help in this process along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So in years past, I've had, it just depends on the software I've had access to and what I've been using to manage it. But I've had some pretty high-end softwares available to me in the past, and we're kind of moving more towards that now with a new software we're going to be using that we could use more intricately on a day-to-day basis with days on pasture and intensive grazing, rotational grazing, and just total herd inputs that we could nail down and dial down into for each specific rotation that we had, like Ken mentioned in the Southeast where we were managing. We had really high-end software that we used to do that. And so that was very helpful to know, and even across that specific ranch, how beneficial maybe one herd had over another, and resources that were needed to do within the different regions of the specific ranch. But out here, we do the same thing, and we're looking towards doing some of the collar stuff and the geofencing, and hopefully we can start to implement some of that stuff within our own application here and within the places that we lease and run cattle on.
Yeah, very good. Ken, you mentioned, and Jenny alluded to it there as well, managing ranches kind of all over the country for about 20 years or so. Can you tell me about some of the ways that journey influenced kind of your perspective on genetics as well?
Yes, sir. So when I first took over a large ranch in Central Florida, we had about 10,000 cows, and it was the ranch was very progressive, and they were nice, beautiful pastures. It looked like a state park going in there, but we didn't really have the genetic thing down when I got there, in my opinion. And the whole region was a little behind on genetics, which they've made leaps and bounds since I've been there, and not from anything I did, but just the whole education in that region. But the bull battery kind of looked like a bad rodeo string when I first got there, in my opinion. But we actually. We had to go buy the genetics we thought would work, and they weren't available in our specific area. So we had to adapt cattle. So we had to kind of get an eye for cattle that would work out of the region into our system. And there was a little bit of trial and error, but we kind of got that down. But it kind of came down to like a type and kind, and also development. That's one of the things that I don't know if I had much influence in it, but Jimmy was there firsthand when I was doing it. But, if you got cattle that were overmanaged and you tried to bring them into a new region, they really fell off. So when we started with the big country genetics, that was one of our things. I mean, I had years I had to go out and buy 60 plus bulls. And even though the investment owners of the ranch had plenty of money, I mean, I didn't have that big a budget, so I couldn't just get anything I wanted. And there really wasn't a place at that time, and they're getting to be more and more of them now, where you could go and find useful genetics that would do what you needed them to do, that were developed properly so that they wouldn't fall apart. It was almost to the point where if you got them from the wrong place, you had to kind of put them up for a year and let them acclimate before you could even utilize them, or they would go out and they may not ever come back to the pens. They would die or just fall off and not breed any cows. So that was some of the reasons why we felt we needed to make an option for the larger ranches that may be family owned or investment owned, but they need a lot of bulls, where they can kind of get them at a price point that were developed properly so that they would actually go out and work and do their job. And look at what's most important is survival and fertility for the very basic building block on whether or not you're going to have any profit. You're going to first of all have to have live calves that and cows that get bred. So
as I always say, my high school career would tell you 0 is hard to recover from. You got to turn in homework. Doesn't matter if you pass the test. If you don't turn any homework, it doesn't help.
That's right. No, that's exactly right.
So, yep. Okay. So you used the term over managed, I think, and that, would you say that's just kind of mainstream? We've got these really fleshy bulls for sale at the sale, but then they go out into the real world and they go to work and they melt and they fall off, and is that kind of what you're talking about?
That's exactly right. And some of them have the best genetics in the world, even for low input scenarios, but they just, they didn't, they want to have a certain look to them. They want to have a certain body condition score. They want to have the pictures that catch the eyes, and they're promoting it for I mean, I'm not saying that that's not a good business plan, but in my opinion, promoting it for the wrong reasons, just to chase a buck rather than promoting a real working man's bull. They're trying to make them cosmetically just perfect, and those cattle usually require, especially if you're changing regions, they require a little more acclimation. Sometimes, if you go to a grassy area, those cattle with the right genetics and they were overmanaged will still work all right. However, if you're trying to swap complete, get into the heat and humidity of the Southeast, you get some Midwest corn fat bulls, it doesn't work very well.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Create Coaches. Hey, are you ready to turn your knowledge and skills into a new profession? Or are you already teaching but would like to beef up your technical knowledge of healthy agroecological systems? Create Coaches is Nicole Masters' 30-week training designed to train and empower consultants and coaches in the theory, principles, and practices behind healthy agroecological systems. Applications for the 2026 Create course open May 1st. For more information, check out www.integritysoils.com. Did you start developing your own bulls there, for the ranch, developing bulls that the ranch owned, but developing them on the ranch with the genetics at the ranch, or did that come later?
Nope. We have every place I've been, we've built some of our own bulls. And that was by design. Even if we had to go out and try to buy some cows that were at least had a prayer to be adaptable or worse from the general region, and then try to improve upon them through AI or buying the right herd sires. And then we build the most of our bulls. I think and actually we sell bulls, so it's not the best business model, but all those big ranches should consider that if they have the resources or the infrastructure to be able to do that, because I think, there'd still be a place for us seed stock guys to give them their seed stock to put into those cows. But if you can make them in your own environment, you're going to be money ahead, in my opinion, and the cattle are going to be adaptable and ready to go to work.
Yeah. Yep. And it's especially with today's bull prices, of course, everything's high and they all kind of tend to parallel each other up and down, but you can probably develop them cheaper than you can buy them and be low risk. Like, well, what am I out if I develop two and buy one and only one of the two I develop, or whatever the ratio is, works out, then, I still am money ahead, right?
Yeah, the thing of it is, though, it's not as easy as it sounds, but most of these guys are pretty savvy ranchers, and if they put a little bit of effort into it, they could figure it out and get it within a few years, have a program that worked.
And you were in Central Florida. Where else? What other ranches did you manage, or where else did you manage?
So we had 12,000 cows under us at the Central Florida ranch, and that would have consisted of Georgia. There was ranches in Georgia, Florida, and several locations in Florida, and then one in Texas. And then the other two ranches, I've only managed 3 large ranches. The other one was a seed stock operation in Mississippi. And then I had a large seed stock, about 6,000 cows in the panhandle of Florida that I managed with multiple breeds when we got there. We kind of narrowed it down to just a few breeds, but that's where Jenny really was. She was great to have at that point because she's good with all the breed associations.
Okay, so it was all kind of though in the Southeast and then also in Texas. So is that right?
That's correct. That's where we manage ranches, and we were actually from Michigan. So we started our process up there in Michigan. That's when I was really running my own cows and building houses.
Sure, gotcha. And who are some of your influences as far as the way you were looking at cattle and thinking this is what works, this is what doesn't?
Oh, I mean, I've had lots of influences over the year, and I don't even know who would be the top. But main thing is anybody who ever published anything or had any talks. I've went to a bunch of seminars, and I've also talked to a lot of guys. I mean, Burke Teichert's one of them that I really like the way he thinks. Roger Anderlin's really good. I like the way he operates, and there's lots of guys out there, though. I'm not thinking of who maybe would be my biggest one. I read all the Johann Zeitzman stuff.
Yep. Gotcha. Okay. And then now you're in what would you call Cali, Wyoming, central, western,
Or northern central, yeah.
North Central.
Yeah.
So fairly different environment, right?
Yep.
What's the same and what's different as far as what works genetically speaking from Central Florida, the Panhandle of Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Texas, and North Central Wyoming?
The moderate frame, easy doing cows tend to work most places. You have to protect them on hair coat and early shedding. But for the most part, you may want to add a little bit of indicus when you get that far south. But we were breeding a lot of that out of them, and the cattle were really surviving and doing well when we were down there. So I don't think it's quite as much as what people might think it is. But I think if you want to have a little bit, 3/8 or a quarter, it's gonna be easier for you. And it's going to take less acclimation. Sorry.
And that's 3/8 or quarter indicus in the southeast.
Yes,
Is that what you're
that
saying?
works good, especially when you get down into Florida and the extreme south.
Right. Yep. Very good. And then now, kind of that. I mean, obviously covering a lot of territory there, 20 years and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But bring us up to date to now. What are you guys doing? What is this new herd that's kind of captured your attention?
So we're still making our XL Maternal Plus composites with our original seed stock that we've had forever, and we've multiplied that and put it into the hands of a lot of the cooperators of our bull sale, the Big Country Genetics. But recently or I should say, the first year I had some was last year. We bought about 20 of these Aubrac heifers, and they weren't bred our way, but I was really intrigued by the breed. I'd seen enough and I've heard enough, and like you, been on that chat and everything. And so I wanted to try some and just see if they were all they were cracked up to be. And so we tried to put them to the test, and we put them in the worst environment we could put them into. And when I was preg checking, coming out of Desert and Shoshone, or, I guess it'd be Waltman down there where Jimmy was running, these heifers just came off fat as ticks. I mean, they look great. They were in perfect rig. So, it kind of caught my attention. And at that time, we had the first calf that wasn't really particularly bred the way we wanted them to be, because we didn't even get these from the original breeder. We got them secondhand. So we were making steers out of them and potentially not keeping very many heifers, but we really liked what we saw on the female side. I mean, the structure's great. The fleshing ability is there. The size is right. They were heavy in terms of body, in terms of weight, but their frame score was the same size as our cattle, which I think is, bumping around that 4 to 4.5 frame. And udders were perfect. And, the more research I did on them, they had A2 on almost all of them. They also, the milk quality was there. They're all of them are real, or not all of them, but 80% of the herd is positive for the tenant. So they're real tender. So, I mean, there was just so many things lining up that went right that I thought crossed with our black bulls would be amazing. So I wanted to infuse a little more of that into my composite. So I reached out to the breeder, and as far as I know, one of the main breeders in the breed, and definitely one of the elite herds in the North America for this particular breed. His name was Scott Frederickson, and so he's the one that hooked me up with these heifers that I got, because he's the one I was talking to, and he knew of a guy that bought some off him that might trade them. So I got those first 20 head. Jimmy and I actually went together and split those, but so then I went up there and visited Scott, and I just realized that, I mean, he's one of these operators that's done things for decades just like he should have. And then the cattle were really good anyway. And the breed actually comes from a low fertility area in France that, doesn't grow very good grass. So that's where they get that inherent fleshing ability. And they still can have the quality milk and the big calves and all that without very much inputs. But then on top of that, for the last 4 decades or 3 decades or however long Scott's been playing with them, he's done everything right from a culling practice and putting pressure on them. So this herd was just really unique to me, and I felt like it was a diamond in the rough. And I thought that, originally I just thought, if I could get a few more of these and get some picks out of here, not necessarily just have to take what he wanted to sell to somebody else, and I just got secondhand, I could do something really cool with this. And so I just told him when I was there that I'd be interested in playing with a few more of these females. And a couple weeks went by and he wasn't even planning on selling them. He called me up and he said, after our visit and the way you appreciate these cattle, I would be interested in selling you the whole herd. So I ended up buying his whole herd, about 150 cows, and they are, I couldn't have done a better job with them myself. I don't think if I'd had them for the last 3 decades. So I really appreciate what he did. But on top of that, they're just a tough breed, with a lot of resilience and, I think that it's going to be a blast to make the composites, but now I also have a little bit of uh, I need to preserve the breed as well. So we're not going to make all of them composite, but we're going to still make some straight Aubracs, and we're going to use that and market those. I don't know if our black bulls will probably continue to go through Big Country Genetics, but we'll have some packages, like 6-packs or a dozen heifers available here and there, and Aubrac females for somebody that would be private treaty, and then the straight Aubrac bulls, we may or may not ever incorporate them in the Big Country because it's not the same business model, but those will be available as well through us here at XL Ranch. So that's the goals going forward. But I think that the real strength is maybe not the standalone breed, because it is a little different. It does have it's not perfect. No cattle are perfect, but the composites with a quarter or half of this being the Aubracs, I think is going to be amazing cattle. And we've been a stickler for structure, udder quality, fleshing ability, but it's hard to compete with these. I just one right after another. Perfect leg structure, perfect hip structure, perfect feet, beautiful udders. So they're going to be fun to play with. And I don't know where you could find another set of cows, even though I'm not one that wanted to go out and find a big herd of brown cows. That wasn't my goal, but it was because they were so good. They were good cattle no matter what color they were. It was the reason why we went for it, and we're going to try to make this all come together.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Ranch Right. We've been telling you for years about the power of working with the team at Ranch Right to help you acquire actionable financials so you can build a profitable business and pass on generational wealth. Don't just take our word for it. Listen to some of these responses on a recent survey of Ranch Right's clientele. 97% of them said they understood their financials better as a result of working with Ranch Right. 91% said Ranch Right saves them time, and over again in the survey, these ranchers say the value of working with the team at Ranch Right is the team. Many of them remarked that the conversations with their Ranch Right team member helped them see the opportunities they had for business growth and success. They used words like eye-opening and helpful to describe the reports, saying that they had more clarity about the next step as a result of the product of Ranch Right's work. Head over to ranchrightllc.com today to book your discovery call and see how Ranch Right can speed up your path to profitability. Do you think that those cows are the way they are because they have not been commercialized, messed with? People haven't sought to chase weaning weights or whatever it is that we're chasing. Is that the reason, or is there something else, or is it a combination of things?
It's funny you said that, because I just had a meeting with a big rancher last week. I also do some nutrition work with Advanced Ag Products, and I was meeting with Scott Eaton with the Eaton Ranch, and he's familiar with this herd, and he likes them. He really likes them, but he said the reason why they're so good is because nobody screwed them up. So that's exactly what you're saying. And it stuck with me when he said that. I thought that was a good comment.
Yeah, and I had a conversation one time with Steve Campbell, and I asked him, "Is this why sheep are more functional? Because nobody's chased the weaning weights with sheep like they have with."
Yeah.
And I think that is a lot of it with the cow side is and yeah.
And
breed associations, right?
I'm not opposed to having growthy calves and having big calf checks and all that, but I think it all comes, you have to be conscious of what resources on your ranch will run. And if you can figure that out, maximize what you can do. But, most generally, even when guys figure that out, they take it too far. And then they could have been better off running more cows with less maintenance requirements and having fewer calves at a lower weight. And so I totally agree with what you're saying, but I think that depending on where you're at, you can potentially have heavier calves than guys where I'm at, or where I've been. It just depends on the exactly where you're located on whether or not you can have 700 or 800 pound weaning weight on a regular basis. And if someone did, I'd still want to see all the details and see if they couldn't have done better even with a lighter calf.
Right. Well, and I said that on the episode that Jimmy and I did together. It's your determination of profit is not the size of the calf; it's how much it costs you to raise it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And she's the one that keeps me in line there too.
And Jenny said you're good with the breed associations. What does that entail?
Well, each of them are unique in their own way, although they're all the same in many ways. But just how they report information across the different breeds, and just knowing that, and like you said, they all want the same information, but how you get it to them and report it in what fashion and the time frame is unique to each breed association.
Gotcha. And he was saying you're keeping track of the feed costs and all those kind of things. What are some of the things that you find most beneficial to keep an eye on?
So keep an eye on the actual cost. It's easy to get receipts in, and you're just like, yeah, and then brushed them off. But just getting that, allocated immediately, and understanding where that went and what that cost for the cow, what she costs actual is needed and necessary for your bottom line.
At one big ranch we were at, she actually helped a team from China to develop a software that we could, every time we put a bag of mineral out or put some lick out or put a bale of hay out, it got attributed right to that herd, where you could keep right down to a per head per day on how much you had into each cow. We don't have that set up here yet, but we'd like to get to that point. But it was awesome when she got that developed. It's actually the way people need to be ranching.
It was really nice because the guys right from the field, from their iPads, could plug it in immediately when they put it out. They put like 250 gallons, a gallon meter, whatever. If they're putting out liquid supplement or a bag of mineral or whatever it was, they could report it immediately, and then it would just cost into that based on what was put in the computer. So just getting the information turned in is most important.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and just the diligence to do that, right? To just keep on top of those things, not let it pile up, not let it get blown away when somebody opens both doors of the pickup at the same time and the dash gets cleared out.
Yes. I mean, it helps that a lot of stuff gets paid for through your credit or debit cards nowadays, and so you have that functionality. But it also is easy to get lost in that functionality as well, especially with generalized purchases, because you go out to Amazon to do purchase, and you got an Amazon, well, what'd you buy?
Mm-hmm.
And you can just breaking that down and making sure you're keeping track of all of that.
Yeah. Yep. And on the cow tracking side, are you doing anything there, or anything that's really caught your attention and been really valuable on that side?
Well, I'm hoping so. We're just moving our way into a new software that I'm going to be utilizing, and Ken's gotten to see the demo on it, and he was really excited about what it had to offer, and I'm hoping I can get on board with that excitement as well. I think I will, based on what his excitement with it was. I'm just not there yet because, as I told him, everyone loves to hate a new system. So you know it, and then you're really happy you changed.
Right.
This is going to be kind of nice. It's going to give us a activity report of the bulls while they're out and stuff like that. So you'll be able to see if they're mounting cattle, if they're not moving as much as they were, and stuff like that. So I think it's going to have some cool features. We're not going to go whole hog in it, but a couple of years ago we lost a very good bull on the mountain, and he didn't even come back for the next year's breeding season. And then so we missed. He just lived out, got by somewhere, and then by the time he got back, we already couldn't use him. So he's still in the program, but we skipped the whole year of breeding, getting calves out of him. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, back to these Aubrac cattle, I guess. What are they that you said? Are they red or brown-hided cattle?
Yeah, so they're almost like the color, which is actually favorable for different environments, but they're almost like the color of a jersey.
Okay.
But the ones I've had and the ones I have now are obviously still have their winter coats, but they slick off early, and they are pretty short-haired in the summertime. So I'm anticipating that to happen with these ones that I just got in, the bulk, that big herd. But black hooved, black nose. Some of them are horned. Scott's been working on polled lines, and he's got some homozygous polled even. So he's been working on that over the last few years, or several years, I should say. But they're a little different looking, but from my perspective, if you could just get over the color, they're perfect in terms of structure and shape. They're
And
more like a bondsman style, in terms of. I mean, I know you're very familiar with that.
yeah, and the as far as different looking, just the colors, what's different mainly?
Yeah, pretty much the color. And then if you have a horned one or two, I mean, that's not very desirable. So we're
Sure.
those some of those horned cattle will probably be some first ones to go into our composite, which would be using homozygous black, homozygous polled bulls out of our program on. So they would have black polled calves out of them, and then we'll breed up from there. I think the true gem is going to be those percentage cows in our composite for years to come. That's going to be amazing. But I got enough respect for this breed, and the more I've been studying and all the good things they bring, we're going to keep a true line of them too. Won't be huge sampling, but
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Gray's Magazine. If you enjoy this podcast, you'll probably enjoy Gray's Magazine. It's all about grazing, management, mindset, and learning from other producers doing the work. It's written by grazers for grazers, and it's been around for 25 years. It's not fluff. It's practical stuff you can actually use. They're offering Working Cows listeners $10 off an annual subscription. Go to grazonline.com and use code WORKINGCOWS to get it. As far as I know, we oppose the horned cattle for reasons I'm not really sure why necessarily, because from my understanding, in most cases, that horned cow is going to be more heat tolerant than her polled sister. Have you seen that? Or
I don't have any data to support that, or I haven't studied that, but I have heard that before. And maybe I'll determine I want to keep a line of horned ones, but it's not very much. I mean, it's mainly a convenience trade, I think. Even multiple breeds, even like the Hereford cattle. I mean, they're working hard to get those polled Herefords as good as old horned Hereford cows were, and I think that guys just would rather not have to deal with the horns, and they're not very favorable in the feedlot setting and stuff like that.
right? Yep, for sure. Well, yeah, there are many marketing and practical reasons, but I think there are some maybe inherent genetic reasons why those things work and are helpful. But you got to balance that, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's all a market, and you got to figure out what your market is. So
yeah, I know if I got one that's really good that's horned out of this new venture, I mean, I appreciate her for what she is. I'm not one bit disappointed, but I do know that being a realist, I'm probably going to have to work towards getting most of those off in order to really be able to merchandise them.
yeah, and you said
anyway.
Yeah, you said you're going to maintain some of these as just straight Aubrac. What are some of those things that you said as I've been studying, really getting excited about that and wanting to preserve that? What are some of the things that have drawn you to them?
Well, I mean, just like for instance, when I was still considering on whether or not I wanted to do this, because it's quite a bit of money for a bunch of cows that really didn't have a market. I called Burke Tykert and I consulted with him a little bit about it, and he said, he didn't know of any other cow that could survive on nothing and still breed back every year and stay fat on marginal range, and that pretty much sold me. And that if that's not enough to sell you, then you look at them from a structure standpoint, and I just think there's so many of these cattle that are. Even the easy fleshing stuff that we follow and we try to make. I mean, you'd like to put a little more heel on them. You'd like to change them in their hip structure. You'd like to, fix them up front. They get a little steep shouldered sometimes. And I mean, these cattle, for whatever reason, probably because nobody's ever screwed them up, they still have. I mean, like Scott always says, like when I was meeting with him and stuff, he hasn't got them quite like a herd of antelope yet, but he's close. So it's just because their structures are impeccable and they're all the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jenny, what's been kind of your perspective on these cattle, on the Aubrac cattle specifically, and how have they kind of stood out to you?
Well, I really can't speak to like what Ken does because he studies that and that's what his function is and role. I can appreciate them from the standpoint of going out and watching them move and be mothers and just been real easy calving season as they've been just hit the ground going. And I mean, if you don't get that calf tagged in day one, you're gonna get her at when you when you precondition, you're gonna put a tag in and man me up then. But yeah, they just seem like a really nice set. I mean, the sampling we had last year, we getting some calves out of them that are bred the way that we would want to market for our sale, and we're excited about seeing them. And there's certainly some really nice calves as young as they are now, and excited to see how they continue to grow and come along. But yeah, just from a standpoint of seeing them be very maternal and just really high vigorous calves when they're born.
Oh yeah, I can attest to that too.
Yeah, and good disposition too, in your experience.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, they're going to be, they're going to be in your face a little bit, but not to the point where they're ready to run you over. And I'm sure that this, like any breed, is going to be, there's going to be a few that you're probably just going to not do.
Yeah.
So far, they work a lot better on horseback than they do on foot. I don't know, maybe that's how Scott's managed them over the years. But boy, they're a dream on horseback when we were sorting off, because I dumped them out on corn stalks with a bunch of other cows when I got them. We were sorting some off, and they moved like a dream on horseback. But they were a little faster in the pens, but it's all new to them. I mean, these cows probably never even took a trailer ride before, and then they got on pots and then came.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they're settling in nice.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about that again, not to keep going back to my episode with Jimmy, but it's relevant. He mentioned that, a lot of the reason why some of these cows don't work in his environment is because of predation, right?
Mhm.
And he can send them to Southeast, and they've got more time for those calves to get licked off and up off the ground, where they're not going to freeze, and maybe they're not vulnerable to as many predators down there. So I think that's probably not all bad to have a cow that's going to really check out who's coming in to see her calf, and I've heard Glenn Elzinga talk about that too. He's like, I kind of like a cow that will defend her calf, and sometimes that's against me, and that's okay. And we just know that, and we understand that, right?
We just remember that number.
Right, exactly.
I'm not near as brave as I used to be when I was Jimmy's age, but
Understand for sure. Yeah, yeah. What about masculinity, femininity in these bulls and cows? They stand out to you that way too?
yeah. So I didn't really, I steered all the bull calves last year, so I like to evaluate that at a young age. I actually, in our whole program, Jimmy included, we put a lot of pressure recently on early maturation point, trying to get these cattle, because we're selling young bull that's up until now when we're trying to make some adjustments, but we've sold a yearling bull that was born, just barely 12 months old, and we don't feed him hard, so he doesn't have anything covering up any of his flaws. But if they don't, they could look like calves if you had, a lot of these high growth, later maturing cattle. So when we knew early on that we had to get these cattle to mature quick, it works really good from a female standpoint too, but mainly from the bull calf side. I mean, I don't know if you've previewed our catalog or not, but yearling bulls with no feed, you won't find another set of bulls, at least not in this many numbers, that have the crest on them and they look like little men, very many places. I mean, it's been hard work over the years trying to put some early maturing into them. And I feel like these cattle are going to fit right in, these Aubracs, just because I know the way that Scott has managed them over the years is probably going to be fine. And we may have some work to do on that, but I feel like the bulls he has, they look like bulls, and the cows, they're ewe-necked cows with the right wedge shape, and the cows look like cows. I mean, so I think the hormone is right on both the females and the bulls within that herd that I purchased, and I can't take any credit for that. And and that's what we've been working on in our cattle for a long time.
Yeah, very good. And going forward, there will be ability to access the straight Aubracs and some composites built with the Aubracs and the Big Country genetics. Is that right?
Yeah, so tentatively what our plans are, unless something changes, and I'm assuming Jimmy's on board, but we're going to do black bulls going through Big Country, and then the straight Aubrac's going through XL Ranch private treaty. Probably not a sale anytime soon, but we never know what it'll grow into. And maybe we'll find out that we got such a market and a demand for them that we need to make a bunch more of those straight Aubracs. I think the breed is definitely good enough, but just depends on if the marketplace will support it.
Right. Yep. And they'll be, I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? These cows that work in harsh environments, they can go anywhere and work well. Some are going to they're going to start to, maybe I'll just ask if you agree with this statement. They're going to start to display different traits in different environments, but they will work in many different environments. Would you agree with that?
I believe these cattle work a lot of different places, and even from my own composite for years, I've had, cows out on shares with people and stuff. I've had them grazing fescue, the same cows that Jimmy has and I have in Wyoming. We're in Mississippi, Florida, fescue in Tennessee, and they, because it's a resilient package that's got the right vital organ capacity and rumen, and they got a big rumen vats there. They work well everywhere. I don't think that, if you wanted to run a bunch of them in Florida, you probably want to put them on a set of half blood cows or 3/8 blood cows or quarter blood cows or something like that. You probably wouldn't want to just keep them straight, but they work everywhere. I mean, to some degree, and some places better than others. Obviously, they thrive right where we're at, and we're working towards, building that perfect beast for this environment. But I think with a little bit of studying, we could make sure to send the right ones what needed to go to different places that would work in different parts of the country.
Yeah. Very good. Where was Scott at? Where did they come from?
Hot Springs, Montana. So it's up further north in Montana.
Okay. Gotcha. And how far west in Montana?
Pretty far west too.
Okay.
Northwest.
Okay.
Not
Gotcha.
all the way west, but it's quite a ways up there. Yep.
High country?
No, he wasn't any higher than we are here.
Okay.
But,
I'm just wondering, pap tests, and have you got any data there?
Yeah, we're at 4,200 here. I have not done any pap testing on these particular cows, but the breed was developed in high country in France. So that should be a precursor to tell us that they should be pretty good. Now, obviously, they've been here for a long time, and Scott's been working with them for a long time. So maybe we bred some of that out of them, but I think they're pretty true to how they first came is how Scott's kind of kept them. I think actually the guys in France are following some of the same stuff in the U.S. and most of those guys are pushing more growth on them now than what. And Scott never bought into that because he figured out it was more important to have cattle that were fit for the resources.
How did he come to get them?
I guess I should have asked that question. I know somehow or another he got turned on to him, and he didn't really know that he wanted to be a Aubrac breeder, but he just fell in love with the breed. So he did the best he could to do right by the breed, and he kept him true for several years. But
cool, very good. Anything else that was on your agenda as far as the Aubrac breed is concerned?
I got notes here, and I don't know how many of them I actually talked about. I mean, I was just thinking, it's not necessarily any one breed. I'm kind of looking at the whole big picture, whether it's brown or black or whatever. I mean, efficient on low quality forage, fertile under stress, fewer inputs, survive on coarse grasses and seasonal forage. I mean, that's some of the notes I had on here. And that's what we try to do across the board on all of our cattle. I just think these fit in there perfectly. And it's a blessing that I found them because I could buy a large slug of them that's unique to what I've been doing, but also manage just like what I always was trying to do.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and I think that is with the Aubracs, you found a diamond in the rough, so to speak, of animals that fit that. All the list that you read off there, right?
Yeah.
And rather than having to make them, they were already there, right? Is that kind of what
you're? Now we just need to tweak them into our system.
Right. Yep. And like you said, breed them the way you want and let them shine, right?
And I think I would be able to appeal to somebody in different regions from like the humidity and the heat with the different color of the hide is going to help from that regard. So that part's going to be good. And I don't know that they need to go down there and have straight Aubrac, but that would be, with the moderate frame and the quality of beef and, all the other intangibles they bring to the table. It'd be a good, place for guys to crossbreed, to do something different in their low input deals and their grass finish type deals. These cattle are awesome on grass finish. I mean, they get fat on nothing. So.
Yeah, very good. Well, I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share kind of the story, and look forward to seeing where it goes. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It was a blast.
Very good. I like to capture a little bonus content if you are willing. We got about 10 more minutes or so.
Yeah.
Very good stuff there with Ken and Jenny. Really appreciate them taking the time to share their perspective on these cattle, Aubrac cattle, and they've been mentioned before. I think maybe Cooper Hibbard's done some work with them and used them in some of the composites he's been developing. But it was cool to talk to them about kind of their perspective and what they're excited about. Coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, I was honored to be a guest recently on a fairly new podcast, and I just want to share it with you, help get the word out about their podcast and the good work that they're doing. So look forward to sharing that with you, coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.